All right, we're going to work around this agenda a little bit. Our executive director, Mr. Kenneth, is going to give his annual State of the Union address. You could talk about it, anything important that came up with the board. Okay. Dustin, you want to start with, so we can get, so Jim will be last. All right. Want to go over the TAC meeting and real quick over this resolution that the members have to give a thumbs up or down on what happened in the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick summary of our TAC. It was a really kind of information-packed one today. We had a lot of our staff give some presentations, but kind of first order of business is the TAC at their first meeting of the year takes nominations for their leadership. Does things a little bit different than we do here at the CAB, but Gary Schaefer from the Trumbull County Engineers Office will continue his role as chair. I think he's been in that role since 2016, and we're grateful for it because he does just a bang-up job. And next chair is Bob Durbin from the Mahoney County Engineers Office. So two very reliable and responsive folks continuing in those positions. And then we moved on to kind of the content part of the meeting where we talked about non-point source implementation strategic plans. This is Stephanie Dyer, our environmental program manager, really giving an overview of what those documents are, very much water quality based. And looking for sources of impairment of water quality. And an example that she gave is we recently completed one for Anderson's Run. Mill Creek, which is in the Mill Creek watershed, contains portions of the city of Youngstown and Boardman, Austintown, and Canfield. And we see a lot of issues with sedimentation and siltation in that watershed due to development and just kind of runoff and erosion from some streamside properties and things like that. So what these plans really do is they dig into these watershed areas, identify problem locations that we call critical areas, put together some recommendations that help the communities go through project development. So come up with some creative ideas to really remediate the issues that are apparent, whether that's erosion or if there's nutrients in more agricultural and rural communities. We could identify hotspots of where nutrient infiltration into the water sources are going. But the big key piece is once we complete these plans, we send them off to Ohio EPA. Ohio EPA does a very thorough review, gets back to us with anything that we need to fix on our end, anything that we need to shore up, T's crossed, and I's dotted. But once they give their final approval, this opens up those locations to access new funding sources. So there's a grant program through Ohio EPA called Section 319, which this plan is directly connected to. So if you do not have one of these endorsed plans by Ohio EPA, you cannot receive Section 319 grant funding. So it's really critical that we continue to produce these plans for watersheds all across our region. Stephanie had a great graphic of the ones that we've completed so far. Some of those get completed but not endorsed because we don't necessarily have any projects identified in those locations. That's one of the hardest things that we come across when we're producing these plans is we'll work with the communities and we'll identify some of these problem areas, but there's no clear-cut project to kind of point to it. But that doesn't mean that the plan is all for naught. We still have the bulk of that plan there. The research, the data is all kind of reviewed and approved by Ohio EPA, so it's almost pre-qualified. So as soon as something comes along, maybe the community acquires some property in one of those critical areas, and we're able to develop a project from that point forward, they're set up and ready to go. We can get the plan endorsed, and then they can get funding right after that. So really kind of gave an idea of how this project process all works. And she wanted to make sure that we called attention to the Anderson Run, Mill Creek, and the Little Yankee Run non-point source implementation strategy plans. The Little Yankee Run one is interesting because we're moving into implementation now. The first priority project out of that plan was the removal of I'm going to try and get this right, the Valley Mold Dam, which is in partnership with Elwood Aluminum. They're the current owners of that dam structure, and they don't want it. They don't use it that backup pool for water, for as a water source or anything. They have some concerns about safety issues with that dam because they have people kind of crossing onto their property to fish in that location. It's a pretty steep and treacherous area. That dam's way larger than you would think in person. But
Where is that dam?
it's in the city of Hubbard technically, but it's kind of right on the boundary line of city and township.
On what creek?
Little Yankee Run.
Okay, I just hadn't heard of it before. So you want to get rid of that one?
Yeah, so we've submitted a proposal to ODNR. They have some funding available for us to do some of the preliminary work. It would allow us to get a sediment analysis done, figure out the quantity of sediment and maybe some of the characterization. So we could put a cost to this project. Obviously, from the past work that we've done, we have a good idea of what dam removals cost. But with this one, we just want to make sure we do our homework right. The sediment is the most critical piece because it's the most expensive part of those projects. So getting this out of the way will allow us some good preliminary figures. Like Jim always says, bad estimates kill projects. So want to make sure we're doing it right.
Now, on the point on the jargon here, non-point source. What that means is pollution that you cannot trace to any particular source. In other words, the outflow of a sewage treatment plant is a point source, but the chemicals coming off of the farmland is non-point, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's just a point of, putting things into the vernacular, right?
Yeah, very important point to call attention to because any point sources of pollution are regulated and tracked by the Ohio EPA through the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. You have to get a permit for that. There's kind of accountability measures and measurements and reporting that you have to do related to that permit. So these plans really address all of the pollutant sources outside of things that the EPA already knows about. So like you said, runoff, stormwater, erosion, things that aren't necessarily something you could point directly to and say, that's pollution.
So the sewage treatment plant outflows, the sewer overflows, those are point sources.
Correct.
They have basically permits to pollute.
Exactly.
But the non-point sources, you can't point to. They're just very dispersed, like the farm runoff.
Yep, exactly.
In your sources of pollution, point or non-point, does that include road salt and brine?
Yeah, so one of those aspects that we do address, that's a little bit harder because it is situational. We don't tend to spend a whole lot of effort in these plans talking about that. But in the past, we've run some workshops at our office for our technical folks, like our road crews, our road superintendents, on road salt workshops. We brought in outside professionals on folks that review those programs and come up with creative alternatives to just throwing down kind of the sodium chloride and, the other things that are mixed in there, but looking at different types of brine applications and things like that. And we regularly run those types of educational programming through our technical advisory committee meetings.
I was going to ask you a broader question. Some of my fellow kayakers in season on trips down the rivers, they have said that the Great Lakes watershed gets a lot of high priority for pollution elimination. And the Ohio River watershed, which of course we're in, is a much lower priority for the feds. The question is that true? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, and I think, even at the state level, when we look at funding breakdowns, you see that play out. I don't necessarily off the top of my head have any figures to throw out there to justify that, but we do see more attention get paid to the Lake Erie watersheds just because there's, I think those freshwater sources are really critical in the agricultural contributions to that with the algal blooms and the issues that causes in Lake Erie really is a higher priority because you've got drinking water sources kind of in the mix. Whereas, and I, not to say that we don't think it could go the other way, but there has been an outsized amount of attention paid to the Lake Erie watersheds. We have been fortunate. The governor's program, H2 Ohio, we haven't necessarily seen that split in the same way. It's been a bit more fairly distributed across the state, not necessarily heavily tipped towards one direction or not. But traditionally, we have seen more attention paid to the Lake Erie watersheds, more so than our own.
Justin?
Yeah, Phil, is that you?
Yes, it is. Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I've been attending the meetings at Trumbull County Soil and Water, and they've have been instructional on that brine runoff and the salt runoffs. Are you duplicating services? Does Mahoney County provide the same thing?
I know that Mahoney County does have their own soil and water conservation district. To my knowledge, I'm not sure what types of programming they do, but I'm certain that they provide support to the communities within Mahoney County. But yeah, I can't speak specifically to the programming that they've kind of organized.
Because in Trumbull County, again, along with those programs for our road departments, they also have a program with these stickers that we put out on runoffs, especially the rainwater runoffs that they drain to the creeks / rivers, lakes. So I'm just not sure why Eastgate would somewhat be kind of duplicating that service.
In terms of running workshops, or are you talking about the plans that we're creating?
Well, for running the workshops, yes, because I've never heard of you guys running any workshops with that, at least in Trumbull County.
Yeah, it would have occurred at our technical advisory committee meeting. I know the road salt one was several years ago, but we try and keep things fresh and bring in different types of content periodically, just to make sure that we have a fairly captive audience of technical workers at our community. So it's a good opportunity for us to showcase different types of information. But it's not a regular program where we're contracted with a firm to be able to provide information on a specific topic regularly. So I wouldn't say we're duplicating, but certainly I'm sure we cover an area that someone else has some programming related to.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. To keep us going, the next topic we covered was our housing strategy. Really, this was just a reminder of our upcoming meeting next week. It is next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. up at the main library in Youngstown. This is where we'll unveil the final plan. It's been, a great process over the last year to put this together. We have a lot of great information. Everything is up on our website, and I'll pull it up real quickly just to show you how to get there. So if you go to eastgatecog.org, this one is under projects, planning and development, regional housing plan. So as you look here, you can see regional housing strategy. These links, These links in this first section of the page here are the most recent documents. They are the final piece to the plan. They're the actual strategy itself. So you'll see the principles for development, what we're really promoting in terms of how we go about developing our communities. You'll see some data and analysis on housing stock and population trends. These next two bullet points are broken out by kind of scale that you're looking at. So if you're looking at a regional scale, we've got specified recommendations particular to that. Or if you're a local community, go to the local recommendations and you'll find some more specified recommendations on how we can make improvements. The last section is the appendix. We've got the property tax assessment, which was completed for Mahoning County. Still waiting on some data for Trumbull County to be able to include them in that document, and we'll update that accordingly as that data comes in. And then the last piece there is the outreach methodology. basically showcasing how we went about hearing all of the stakeholders' voices and making sure that we had the information from the on-the-ground people in a way that made most sense and helped us craft this in a way that was helpful to everyone. And then the last little piece here is an executive summary if you just want the quick and dirty of it. You don't want to necessarily page through several hundred pages of information and data and just want to kind of get the nuts and bolts. And then as you continue on the page, it's the pieces of the plan that we've released throughout the year. So the market value analysis, which is really our data piece. And it's an interactive map where you can go in. It breaks down our region into submarkets. And these submarkets are kind of outlined as you go through the other parts of the plan, and they're connected to the recommendations. So we have recommendations specific to the submarket that we're talking about. And that last piece is the housing needs assessment. So if the market value assessment is our quantitative analysis, dealing with data and things that we could track and point to, our housing needs assessment is our qualitative. So it's how we balance the hard data with the actual experiential information that we receive from the on-the-ground folks. But really excited to show this off. We're going to have our consultants come up next Thursday to help walk us through the final information, talk to our local communities about what's next, and we'll kind of lay out that bigger picture of, we've done the plan, but how do we actually make good on it? And that's part of our whole methodology. And we really want to wave the flag for housing coming up in this next year because we think it's that important. Our communities are bought in, and we've even kind of brought in our regional partners to help us out too. So the next topic we covered was an overall update on our economic development and broadband programs. The biggest news is the Economic Development Administration, the federal department, has been reauthorized for the first time in 20 years. So a big kind of win federally for us. That updates a lot of their strategic priorities, how their programs operate, and even adjusts their federal cost share. So as we've been operating with EDA in the past, if we seek EDA funding, any local community that wanted a grant from EDA, you'd have to match it 50-50. So whatever you got from EDA, you'd have to put the same amount in. They've revised that cost share and it's now 60-40. So EDA will provide 60% and the local will provide 40%, which could be a savings to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars for our communities. So love to see those types of revisions as these things get updated. We had a small update on the Warren Live Zone Infrastructure Improvement Plan, which is a grant that Eastgate received, working with Trumbull County and the city of Warren to take a look at industrial infrastructure improvements along our roadways to help facilitate future development and growing kind of the businesses that we've seen develop in kind of that Warren, Lordstown, and surrounding areas area. Some updates on the broadband projects. We've got ongoing projects in Mahoning, Trumbull, and Ashtabula counties. Pretty remarkable. Mahoning and Trumbull County commissioners both committed ARPA funding to doing actual broadband implementation dollars. So they've awarded that funding to Eastgate. We've released RFPs to ask broadband providers to give us their best proposals. In Mahoning County, we have 3 separate projects to provide broadband access to locations that were previously unserved. And that's been our entire kind of approach with these projects is we want to make sure that people that do not have internet access have it before we address any type of other issues. So in Mahoning County, we have 3 active projects that we're moving forward on. 2 of those projects are in the design and planning stage, so they're drawing up their plans. One of those is just about ready to get their permits before they can move into construction. The other 2 projects are just slightly behind them. In Trumbull County, we've received proposals on our RFP and we're in the decision-making process. So we're working with our friends in Trumbull County to help pick the best proposal. And then in Ashtabula County, they received a grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission. It was a power grant for $1.5 million. to do a similar project. It's provide broadband access to unserved locations. They've run into a few hiccups along the way, just some regulations and some requirements from the federal side because they're using federal dollars. But they have re-released their request for proposals, asking providers once again to submit their best proposal for what type of access they can provide, and are just waiting for responses. Those responses should come in. February 12th is the deadline, so we should have a good idea of how that project will come together and really have a great result. Yeah.
Would you say most of the unserved areas are rural?
For sure. Yeah, there are 5 townships in Mahoning County that we're looking at. It is Milton,
You get this.
Springfield, Smith, Goshen. Whew. That's possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that 5th one escapes me. And then in Trumbull County, generally, it's the top 2 rows of townships, those northernmost townships. We haven't made a selection for a firm just yet, so we don't have locations specifically figured out, but that's our target area, is those most rural areas. Ashtabula County is that southern portion. So really filling that gap between kind of the developed core of Trumbull County and kind of the lakefront area in Ashtabula. There's a pretty big gap in service availability there. And then up next was the Ohio Public Works Commission. Ed gave an update on the most recent round. There were 52 projects in total submitted. This is a program that really provides the nuts and bolts infrastructure. So your road paving programs, some sewer and water work, really critical for our local communities that take great advantage of it. The big point that Ed had made is that this program gets authorized at elections. So it's by the people on a ballot. It's been reauthorized 4 times. So it's in its 30th year. Each time it gets authorized, it's a 10-year period for funding. This is the last program year of its current authorization. So the OPWC program, Ohio Public Works Infrastructure Program, will be back on the ballot May 6th for that election. Our position here at Eastgate is that this program provides invaluable support to our local communities. Our infrastructure conditions would not be where they are without this support. So very critical that this is something that the electorate is supportive of and passes.
Yeah, it literally funds about 50 projects every year in Mahoning and Trumbull County. So it's very popular and very necessary to our communities.
So we'll have more information about that as we come along. Next month, Ed and Stephanie will be here. Ed's going to talk about the OPWC program. Stephanie will cover the environmental stuff and Clean Ohio. But I'm sure Ed will bring this up and talk more in depth than I can about the process for reauthorization. And then lastly, Jeff Gallner, our GIS manager, gave an overview of one of the new tools that he built. This is another one that I'll bring up real quickly just to show off. And I'll put the link to this tool in the meeting summary. This is our environmental justice map. So one of Eastgate's requirements on our transportation side is that we track all of the impacts to projects that are funded through our transportation programs. So Jeff does a really great job at pulling out these data points. So low income populations, high minority, high disability, limited English proficiency, households with no vehicles, and then an overall summary. So all of this data is broken out on the census tract level, where we identify census tracts that have a higher population than the regional average. And we identify those as our environmental justice areas. And then we take a look at where our projects are coming from on the transportation side and ensure that the project type that is funded is not negatively impacting the populations in those areas. And this is a federal requirement that we're mandated to conduct as part of our process. Jeff does a great job at making sure that this is an easy process for us to go through and take a look at and review. But I will make sure that this tool is available to you all. You can click around. It's an interactive map. It's really interesting to click through and see how those projects kind of fit into those areas. And for our local communities, this can be a great tool. You can use this as a project development tool if you know that populations in those census tracts need certain amenities or certain types of features for our transportation infrastructure. You could use this as a way to kind of justify the project type, what you're including in the project, and where it should be located in order to best support those folks. But yeah, that is what we covered at TAC today. Any other questions as I kind of ran through that a little quick? Otherwise, we can keep rolling.
Now I know for the resolution.
Certainly. So I'll take this one. You did not see this before this meeting because the agenda button in the meeting announcement didn't populate correctly. But if you are in the room today, we have printed copies. And for those of you joining online, I'll be sending out the meeting summary and you can take a look at this. And for our voting members, you'll also get a copy of this in your email inbox for your review. This resolution is fairly routine. It's just amending our transportation improvement program, which is a regular thing that you see come across in these resolutions, to identify the state fiscal year 2025 WRTA bus replacement program. So this identifies a project to replace two 35-foot WRTA buses using a very specific pot of funding, the Diesel Emissions Reduction Grant Funds. This type of resolution is something that is fairly routine that comes through as projects develop like this, and these funding sources are connected to these projects. So that will be sent out via email to our voting members. It'll also, the information for that resolution will also be provided in the meeting summary for this.
So, yeah, we were just discussing this informally before the meeting got started. I basically have three questions about this resolution. First of all, are these two new WRTA buses going to be electric? Secondly, was this competitively bid? And thirdly, why do we have to spend 2.4 million plus to get just two WRTA buses?
Just taking notes.
So are they electric? Was it competitively bid? And why are they so expensive at 2.4 million for just two buses?
Yeah. Nice question.
I do not have the answers to those questions for you right now, Pete, but I will make sure that I follow up and have those answers provided in the meeting summary and any follow-up information. To your second question, without knowing for certain, I can almost guarantee that WRTA follows the appropriate processes for competitive bidding.
That's under state regulations, right? Or is it federal?
Yeah.
Could be both.
So I would have the confidence to say that that is an appropriate, they have followed an appropriate process. But I will, again, confirm all of that information to make sure to follow up with those answers.
So when the director was here at one of the meetings, it sure sounded like it was going to be for electrifying everything. So it's a good point to find out. Sounds like that's the direction they want to go.
It is a good point because that's a big price tag.
Yeah.
They have that monthly meeting at the WRTA. Is it the third Thursday at 3:00? So if you need answers, go down there at that time.
Certainly. Yep. Any other questions on the resolution?
Did you answer the question about the cost?
I don't have that answer, but it's one that I will follow up on and make sure to get some context for.
Well, if it was competitively bid, then I would have to assume that, I don't know how many bids they got. They might have only gotten one or two bidders, but I assume if it was competitively bid, this was the lowest available price or the lowest price quoted to them. They're supposed to go with lowest and best bidder, but they almost always just go with the lowest because nobody wants to fight in court about who's the best, right?
Said it's mostly lowest bidder, state it's lowest and best.
Yes, but Pete makes a great point. If you don't go below us to get ready to fight that.
Thoughts? The only other thing I had today, Kevin, and feel free if you want me to do this now or after Jim's presentation. I had 2 minutes just on kind of the CAB board, kind of what's to come.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that now.
So one of those things is membership and participation. We talked about this towards the end of last year, if you all remember. So I've been working on a press release strategy. I sent one out for this meeting here today. I didn't see it get picked up, but it could have gotten lost in maybe some of the holiday noise. Not too concerned. I think we'll be okay. But we'll continue to do that for each meeting. Also doing some local media outreach. So getting in touch with our local TV media, particularly to share the information about the CAB, what you all do, why you're important, and how to get involved, just so we get some new eyes and new ears on what this all is. And then in addition to all of that, coordination with regional community groups. So at the end of our November meeting, we had a couple people reach out and say, hey, you know, I'm connected to these groups. It'd be great to share the information about the CAB there. I think it would help grow the network. So we'll be looking to do that as well, just to keep sharing the good word and make sure we get some new voices in the group. So just to let you all know that we're actively working on bolstering some of the numbers and participation. And hopefully that turns over into membership and active participation too. So we'll look to see that in the coming year. And the second thing is something that we've, I think, talked about for quite some time. And something that I've wanted to put together for a while, just haven't had the time to dedicate and focus on, but I have started. And it's a CAB manual or guidebook or handbook or whatever we want to end up calling it. But next month, I will have a draft for you. It's something a long time ago I actually found a very old copy. I believe it's probably from the 80s or 90s. So using that as some like retro inspiration, I'll be putting some information together to help just really plain language explain what all this is. And I think that fits into getting more people involved and helping share what we all do. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully you'll all enjoy that big piece of material. We'll get there.
All right, Jim, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Justin. I'm going to kind of probably touch on some of the things that Justin touched on, but I'll expand a little bit, try to give you a little bit more of background what we're diving into. But first, I just want to take a minute to thank each and every one of you for participating in our Assistance Advisory Board. We take the comments and discussion and points seriously. I also have to recognize Justin for an outstanding job on running the show, trying to grow it, capturing the minutes and following up on things. And your comments, we take them serious, we look into it, and that's how we get better. We're excited where we're at. I can't believe this January started my 10th year at Eastgate. I don't know where that time went, but I enjoy it. I enjoy being here. I enjoy the projects. I enjoy the challenge. And I'm really grateful that we have a great staff. And when we look where we're at as an organization, we got, there's 16 of us. And I think we go about 40 different directions. And it's amazing that we're putting out maps like this. We're looking at the drainage maps. We're diving into interchanges. We're looking at housing. But it's a great group. We got two great leaders when we talk about our planning section with Justin's efforts. And when we look at our transportation section with Stephen Zubik's efforts, and I know he addressed the group in the past and we'll be back. But we're really growing our network. I have to recognize our ability to work with our regional partners, the port, the chamber, the lake to river people, the valley partners. Most of them are in this building and it makes it a lot easier. And, you know, I've said it for the last maybe 2-3 years. We're finally working at there's not a wall between Mahoning and Trumbull County. You don't have to cross the border. We're working as one. We had great discussions with Trumbull County commissioners, the new commissioners. We've been up there 2 or 3 times in the last week. We've got a working relationship with Mahoning County. So I really believe that's what we need to do. That's how we'll move this region forward, by working together. Again, we trip over each other in the elevator. Guy Coviello from the chamber was in my office 3 hours ago, and we're talking about what he's doing and what I'm doing and what we can do to help each other. So that's the recipe for our success, and we'll continue to grow that network. But it's really a credit to the staff. We have a small group, and it's just phenomenal work. I did want to touch on that broadband, and I'm going to kind of touch on a handful of things. Stop me if I'm not clear. I'll try to be. Broadband is really the focus, is really getting that last mile. You know, it could be looked the other way, the first mile. It's getting to the houses that had no connectivity. That's the funding that is available through the group, Mark and Justin's leadership, getting the commissioners to pony up and put some money in. We'll cover those areas in Mahoning and Trumbull counties that have no access, that we're aware of. The problem with the rural areas is no cable company wants to go in there unless they're getting some kind of supplement from the state, because it's too expensive to drag a fiber line or put a tower up for 5 houses. That's what we find. But we've been able to find that additional funding through some of the programs, and we're excited about where we're at. We're especially in Mahoning and Trumbull County. I think we're going to have that covered. The $2.5 million investment in Ashtabula is a little bit slower, but we're going to get there. To be honest, we have no business touching broadband. That's not what we are challenged to do. As an agency and a group of us here, we've seen the need, so we attacked it. We don't get, I hate to say it, but we don't get paid to do broadband work. So we kind of have to shuffle around what we do. But Columbus has been grateful for our efforts. Broadband Ohio has been very grateful. So we've been able to shuffle some things around and be recognized by that group for diving into broadband. And again, a credit to this group, recognizing that nobody's touching it, so let's touch it. The one thing we talked about was that fiber line down Route 11, 100 miles and $25 million project. That's considered middle mile. There's no funding for middle mile yet. It's coming, and we'll get that line in. And we are going to be first in line. We identified the first project in Broadband Ohio for middle mile connectivity. That'll bring a high-speed network fiber line down Route 11. When that money starts becoming available through the federal government, we're first in line. We have a study. You're going to hear me say this quite a bit. In order to get federal money, state money, you have to study it and show your plan. I use this real simple. You have to have your plan in one hand, carrying it, and you have to have your hand out for funding in the other. If you don't get a plan, they ain't going to touch it. And then the ability, once you get money, you better spend it. And spend it wisely according to your plan. So we have a great formula. We have a recipe here for success, and we'll continue to attack and get that funding for broadband. The EDA we touched on with Mark, outstanding work. It's 13 for 13 getting funding for our communities, and those are all over the place. We're very successful. The Warren Live Zone. We got money for the Port Authority at the airport, for the flight school. So we're excited about where we go with the EDA program. Again, we kind of figured it out with them. We show them what we're talking about. We've got a track record of building when they do give us money and in investing in a flight school that the port's going to run with. It's just wise investments, and they're happy to fund our projects as we move along. The ability to only have to show 40% in the future versus 50% from a local community will benefit us and help us move along. So we're excited where that's going. I know we mentioned the dam by Yankee Run. The dams have really kind of frustrated me and this agency. It's out of our control on the slow pace we're at. We're excited that we're taking the one in downtown Warren out right now. The Main Street one, which is downstream from that in Warren Township, is moving through the process, and I believe you'll see some progress this year. The frustrating part is the city of Youngstown's 3 dams and the lack of ability to get that moving forward. It's just not a priority for the city of Youngstown. We're trying to do what we can. And I think that I've actually told Justin I'm going to try to take the leadership on that and just try to push it harder to get those dams. It's very important to get them out. And we want to be where we want to be with the clean river, a river cleaning itself, and using it as a recreational opportunity. Many of those locations are being funded through the ACG projects that'll tie in those points where the river and the communities could get into the river with canoe liveries and launches and take advantage of that. So it's important that we spend 2025 pushing hard in the city of Youngstown to get their 3 dams out, 3 smaller dams, well, 2 smaller dams and a bigger one. But that's really kind of where we've been. Now, when I look at 2025, my number one concern as the director is retention and building more capacity. Mark Ragazine recently announced that he's leaving us. He's going to be the service director of Girard. He's homegrown Girard guy, great opportunity, and we applaud him. We're going to miss him. He was very good at what he did, fit in well. So we already posted a planning position. We're trying to attract good people that want to be here. That's important. We talk every day when we look for people. I don't want to be a stepping stone for somebody looking for the next job. I want somebody who wants to be in Mahoning Valley, wants to help us what we're doing. So we have that position up. We have some people, we have some quality candidates here. We're going to start interviewing. We need to fill that as soon as possible. We also are considering if we get 2 people, 2 good candidates, bringing a second one on. I think when we talk about retention, it's not who's going to replace me. It's keeping the whole staff moving and having a succession ladder. Succession planning is not just worried about the director leaving. And I will tell you, I just signed a 5-year contract. I want to stay 5 more years. I'm excited that the executive board offered me 5 years. I mean, you could turn it up tomorrow, but I committed and I want to be here for 5 more years, God willing. I said I love what I do. I love working with this group. And as long as we're successful and it's not getting in my way of my grandbabies in Columbus, I love coming to work. My wife's retired. I couldn't see myself, me and her. And she says she thinks it's good that I go to work. So and I think that's why we have such a great relationship. I go to work and she does her thing and I come home and we're all good. So I think I had to share that. But succession planning is not just who replaces me. It's where we got middle management. We don't want to lose Justin. We don't want to lose Stephen, who's our next level of management. We don't want to lose Mark, but what do we do? How do we plan for that? And then we look at our scale. Are we I'd say senior staff, and do we need to bring in younger staff? Are we looking for middle staff? So we've tried to create in the last year really a ladder for the staff to advance and move and to continue. If they continue to produce, we're going to continue to award them through merit increases. But losing a person we have to be quick to replace. We don't want to get our capacity down too low where we can't deliver. Like I said, we've always had the room to bring 2 people on. We just didn't find the right person yet, but we're going to consider that as we advance and move towards interviewing these people here. And maybe we do get fortunate where we find 2 people that really want to be here. It used to be the method was you bring on interns and then you see how they work and how they fit in, and that's how you hire people. But we don't even have the ability of that. And everybody out there is looking too. I mean, the consultants, the cities, the villages, everybody's looking for help. So we will try to showcase the good work we do, and I'm confident we'll find somebody, maybe 2 to fit in and be able to fill the void here very soon. That's why I think the number one goal in calendar year 25 is building capacity and maintaining capacity. The other thing I want to touch on, I'm not sure that you're familiar with the Lake to River Economic Development Group that's now that the governor carved out of the Jobs Ohio. That was 6 entities. We were part of Team NEO, meaning this region, Columbiana, Mahoning, Trumbull, and Ashtabula. Through 2 years of work, explained to the governor, building through the business community in the chamber, the Port Authority and Eastgate, saying, hey, we're getting crumbs from Cleveland. We're not getting the money that they're doling out to the projects in Cleveland. We're getting their crumbs. We are really a standalone region when you talk Lake to River. We were heard and we were granted the 6th. And I want to tell you, the governor made sure he said, and final entity under Jobs Ohio. He's not entertaining us 8th, 9th, and 10th. But if you look at the pot of money they get at Jobs Ohio, privately funded through the taxes on liquor and alcohol, there's a boatload, or I like to say a war chest of funds that's available for growing the economy, for attracting businesses, for helping infrastructure projects that will grow our economy statewide. Now to be part of an entity that's 1/7 of that pie versus we are 1/6 and just filling the crumbs that Cleveland left at the plate Now we're standalone. I will tell you that I've been doing this a long time, 30 years at ODOT. Now my 10th year here. That is going to make a major difference in this region in the next 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised to see something big start rolling out in 2-3 years, but the ability to be able to tap into those funds, have our own people, they're on the 9th floor, have our own people talking to us about the economy, working with Columbiana, which we talk to way more than you think, and working with Ashtabula, and really at a time the Lake to River is going to benefit this region bigger than anything I've seen in my 39 years. This is big. We don't understand. I don't think everybody understands what's really going on, and we'll see the fruits of that labor for a couple of years. But I will tell you that's going to be very impactful. Really help this region. So I wave my flag for the Lake to River people, and I just, as they kind of find their footing, it's going to be some growing pains here, but they'll find their footing, and that'll really take off and benefit. And we work closely with them. We were fortunate enough through some of our interest we've earned on some of our money that we hold to donate $100,000 to Lake to River to help them get up and running. And we wanted to do that first. And we've seen other regional partners kind of tee up and help. And the county's committed $1 million, probably about $500,000 each to the Lake to River group. So it's outside of what we do. We interact with them closely. We are the infrastructure people that if they find a company wants to come here, I didn't want to spend that much time, but I think it's that important to talk how impactful that group will be. And it's another regional partner that we have at the table and in our building. So it really helps what we're doing. The other I want to touch on, we're really pushing hard for new interchange on 8304. We've really, ODOT invested in a feasibility study with us. There's a couple of red flags that were raised that we've been able to move past. The report's due from the consultant end of this month, early next month. But I believe we're moving in the right direction. I will tell you that that's not coming next year. I mean, a new interchange, but it could come here in the next 5 years. It's not funded, but we've crossed a couple of obstacles in my career at ODOT that I think could kill projects, and we've moved past that. Excuse me. I will say the Governor DeWine has now told ODOT that projects for economic development solely, not for capacity or safety, can be funded. And that's an economic development project or an interchange that we're looking to grow and open up the east side of Youngstown. Also want to talk about another investment because two projects that ODOT's in the process of funding that go through here. We've got money in them, is the I-680 total rehab project that's going to go from roughly the 46 area and then go to South Avenue. It's going to be 2 phases, but it's a total rebuild. So they're ripping the pavement out. It's reached its end of its life. You could see all the patches of paving that they've done out there, but they're putting in, they'll pull that out and put a new pavement. They'll go down 15 inches, put a new base. They'll put 12, 14 inches of concrete or pavement, redo the guardrail, the lighting, everything will get done. That's in 2027. But what's important now is they're asking for input. It's really a virtual public meeting, which is odd, but they're asking for input. They're trying to close some ramps to 680 because it's too congested at some point. The reality is when you build an interchange, you're not supposed to have ramps within a mile of each other. And there's 2 or 3 cases where that's the case. And it's duplication. And the city is not what it was when that was built. So I'd encourage anybody, I believe we have the link, or if we don't have the link to the public meeting, I know Eric's here from public. Do we have it up on our website?
Yeah, the 681 is definitely in our news section.
Yeah, so we have that. You can scan a QR code, or there might be a straight link to ODOT to take a look at what they're doing there. The other one I want to say, because it's a big investment, that's a $70 million investment, I believe. I think it might be growing as we speak. I think it got shaved into 2 projects because they couldn't afford to sell them both together. So it might be near 100 million by now. But it's an investment in this area, and we want that. And we want that to be right. I'm tired of seeing the 2 foot by 6 foot patches out there everywhere. Please, I'd encourage this group to look at it and provide comment. We're actually going to bring ODOT over here next week or the following week because the city has some concerns. So they'll come over here and talk one-on-one with the city. We'll set that up. The second big project investment is the roundabout that they're going to build a new road in State Route 46. I know that's been met by one individual that's not happy about it, and he's kind of roused up the community, but I can tell you the state says it's a safety project. The county engineer believes in the project. We support the project. I will tell you, I go through there every day. But that's also on our website. Take a look at it. It's kind of, when you look at it, you can say it's futuristic, but roundabouts work everywhere they're built. Once you go through it and understand it, that's the way to move traffic safely through intersections that have congestion. So we're excited about that project. We're excited about being part of that project too. I will say, as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we work closely with the Department of Transportation when they have these projects. They get our buy-in. They ask for us for information on what they're not seeing. So the relationship is very strong. I will tell you, not because I work there, I will tell you, I think they commit a lot of funds to this area. I think we get our share of projects. The one back behind that is the DDI that's being built as we speak. Major investment of $25 million and continuing. That's the fastest growing area we have in our region is the Howland Niles area out there, and being able to address that with the state-of-the-art diverging diamond project is only going to help us grow. And so I'm excited about that. We are also, when we talk about a new interchange, we are trying to push ODOT to take a look at the 6280 interchange in Hubbard. That's spaghetti out there. That's just crazy. The ramps go underwater. We really want to say that you widen it to 3 lanes all up to Belmont, then quit. So I think if we look at what's next, or maybe we can get that one first, I think that's the method to our madness here as a planning agency, is to say, hey, are you looking at this? That's a disaster out there. I think the attention we're going to bring to a new interchange might turn around and perk more interest over here at 6280. I really would rather have that built first and straightened out. But I think if we can get a new interchange, you're going to force it because you're going to add capacity to the interstate, which will force them to build and eventually within the next, be honest, 10 years have both those projects completed. I'm trying to just show that we are a planning agency and we're diving into stuff today. I do want to talk that housing assessment and strategy. I never thought I'd be talking about housing in my career. It's vital to economic development. We work closely with the chamber on the 5th floor, and they talk about the businesses trying to come to this area. And one of the first questions is what type of housing you have. Again, to attract investment, to attract funding from the state level or the federal level, it's important that we studied it. Eastgate invested $150,000 of our own money into that project, coupled it with a grant that we got from the Youngstown Foundation. So we invested $250,000 for a thorough assessment and the strategy that's online. And there's no lie, I printed it out. I'm still old school. It's this thick. It's on my desk. I can't page through something like that. I have to be able to look at it old school. But it is a great strategy. It really, when we talk next week, the consultant's going to come up, going to explain the assessments, explain the strategy, the interactive maps that we have. Then Justin's going to kind of explain how we see this taking off. And we really see it as 4 buckets, and we've got our regional partners helping us. We really want to focus on zoning and permitting to get communities to understand that it can't be different everywhere if you want people to invest in housing, sort of maybe make it a one-stop shop where Hubbard and Hubbard Township, and I'm staring at Bill, Liberty, all have the same understanding what we're trying to do. And I really believe when you look at communities, many of them just don't have the knowledge because they can't continue to have zoning inspectors or rely on the books that were made and printed, the rules that were put together 50 years ago. Well, if we could kind of work with those communities, take some of the good things they're doing, some of the things they're having trouble with, and pair them up with other communities that are stronger in this and really kind of give some oversight, bring in some expertise, I think that we could smooth that out. And that's one thing that was identified by the consultant is it's got to be easier for people to come in here and build houses. And I want to make sure that I say that we're not just looking to put in new developments in the suburbs. A lot of attention from the study looking at infill, assembling land. So if I look at 2 buckets already, we have 4 I want to talk about. First one we're going to take charge on is the zoning and permitting Eastgate. The second is land assembly, working with the land banks in both Mahoning and Trumbull counties, work with the Port Authority, being able to assemble tracks. And maybe it's a track in the city of Youngstown. We demoed a hell of a lot of houses in the last couple of years. Finding a track of 4 houses or 4 lots that we could put houses up there. And so I want to take it to the third bucket. It's really small developer training that Valley Partners is going to offer. And if I'm going to, the bigger builders that we have here aren't interested in building 3 houses on the north side, south side, or east side. But a small developer recognizing you can make profit here, putting something up, they got to start. And we want to develop training where they kind of focus on infill, trying to build houses in our cities where we can assemble land and build houses. And maybe it's not just building houses, it's refurbishing houses, teaching them possibly how to flip houses. And there's money to be made and try to spur that interest. Our last bucket is really that the chamber's going to lead. And you can see what I'm saying. We have regional buy-in to this process, which is going to help, is really incentives from a state level and investors. We do have people that want to do this. We just be able to connect the dots and want to invest in our area, want to build houses. So having the chamber being able to work with the business community and behalf of their board as banks, and work with us, maybe we can get investors to come in here and say, my favorite one is I grew up on the west side of Youngstown, where West Elementary School is vacant land now. There's an opportunity for possibly an investor to come in there. We maybe work something out where they're making this up now. The city gives the land, or the school, if they still own the land, gives the land if you're going to build 40 houses on that block. I grew up two streets away from that. I think you got to look at blocks of land. There's the same thing on the north side of Youngstown where there was a school that sat. There's opportunities there. There's a company that's actually out of state that's came in to talk to us. They just focus on old blocks where schools sat. And they somehow get the land for free and then get incentives from the state, and they'll go build 40 multi-unit housing in those areas. Once you invest, you get investment in the cities of Warren and Youngstown where these schools sat. They said the neighborhood grows. The neighborhood, they'll see in 2 years, you'll see people invest in their own houses because they're saying, okay, people recognize we're here. Let's make this a better neighborhood. So method to all that, so when I like to say we're not just focused on building houses in the suburbs, but there's opportunities. There's a great opportunity in Girard. I don't believe that the builder realizes you could TIF a residential property and then claim it back in taxes and future taxes to bring water lines or infrastructure to an area. A city can do this. And then a developer could turn around and build as he wants to build 200 houses on a tract of land in Girard, but he don't have any water or sewer. So if the city thinks that's a great idea, TIF it and turn around and get the money to build the infrastructure, and then we can get these houses. So I think it's a great program. Again, I started by saying I didn't think I'd talk about housing in my life, but I'm excited. I'm not an expert in it, but I will tell you that one thing that I vow on everything we do at Eastgate, if we don't know the answer, we bring in experts because I'm not intimidated. Our staff's not intimidated by the expertise. It makes us look smarter and we get where we need to be quicker. So housing is a big deal to us. We are going to focus that on 2025. We're actually going to put it in our work program for fiscal 2026, which will start in July so that we can charge to it. I'll go back to what I said about broadband. We are not compensated from the state of Ohio or the federal government to do housing, but we see the need. We are creative when we turn around and how we can do some of this work. And we will now make it a work program that the state identifies us doing, and have encouraged us to do that. So I think we're in a great place. We got to crawl before we can walk. We got to walk before we can run. But having the buy-in, having this seminar, this meeting, I should say, and just kind of laying out where we're going to take it from here. I know the excitement's out there. I know the communities want. They've had a couple meetings with developers. They had a couple meetings with communities, and they're well attended. So 2025, we're going to make inroads into the housing and be a better area, better region. It's a problem everywhere. But I will tell you, go to Columbus, where my son lives, there's 30 developments being built as we speak, and probably another 30 that I don't even know. But we need to turn around and invest in our cities, our infill, and to continue to grow. Look for investments in Girard. And I'm not saying I'm not running from anybody who wants to build something in Holland. Let's go. We just want to build houses. I think it's going to be a snowball effect. Once we get going, people are going to see how this works. And I think we'll really grow that. That's really our number one initiative. I just got two more other comments. We are kind of working we're very grateful to our executive committee. We used to call it the Finance Executive Committee, but it's not fair assessment. They're our executive committee and we talk about our finance there. We now have our fiscal officer, Michelle Ballone. She comes in and reports directly to that group. Anytime we have a merit raise or an evaluation where we have to spend money, Michelle signs off. She reports to the group that the money's there. I will say that this is the strongest financial position we've been in since I've been here. We've been able to attract, by the good work that the staff does, and Justin's writing grants and puts in grants all the time, attract grant money. Grant money comes with admin money. We take minimum, but because we've been able to attract grants, we've been able to have the state of Ohio invest in it. The GM funds we generated a couple of years ago are still here. The interest we've invested in money that we hold, we either put it back in a project or have to, or we invest in the admin fees. This is the strongest position this agency's been in a long time. So we also look 3 to 5 years out. I feel very strong where we're at. It gives us the flexibility to do what we need to hire contract employees that bring good work to us and expertise to be able to bring on staff. So I'm excited really where we're going. So I'm looking for just a very successful another 5 years. And I hope I'm sitting here reporting to you in 2000. I don't even know what year that'd be, 29 or 30. But again, it goes back to I appreciate the input we get from the Citizens Advisory Board. It's things we don't see. We need to get that message out. I think I've said this before to this group, and I know I get long-winded, so I'll close it out here. I go to conferences across the country. We're very fortunate. We're part of the AMPO. We're part of NARC, which is a planning agency statewide or countrywide, nationwide, and the other ones for council governments that are nationwide. And I get an opportunity to speak and I talk about a Citizens Advisory Board. And we deal with agencies that are much larger than us. And they're writing down, they're asking me about that. You guys have that? And I go, yes, we do that. We have participation. And it's really, it throws me off that bigger agencies or even agencies our size aren't doing that work. But we really invest and take pride in the input that we get from the citizens like yourself. And when we hear comments, again, we'll listen to anything. And if we don't know the answer, again, we're going to get back to you and find the answer. And there's things that we may be missing and things we're not looking at. We're not afraid to swing and miss at anything. We're talking about that. There's a couple things we missed, but we're not afraid to get up there and take another swing and see if we can make a difference. But I will tell you, we've had a lot of home runs on some of the things we've touched, and we're very proud of that as an agency, as a group. So thank you. I'll gladly entertain any question. And if you ever have any question, don't hesitate to tell me. Don't wait for this meeting or a CAB meeting. We're very accessible here, and we're excited where we're going. Thank you. Sure, Jerome.
Just a question. We have a number of school buildings in town that have been vacant for years.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for maintenance or demolition of those buildings? Is it the school system, city, or the state?
I don't know the answer. I would still believe they're under control of the Board of Education.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, we are going to talk again as we evolve the housing to have people take a look at those and possibly make a difference and show. I actually have a pamphlet that's this thick from this group called Woda Cooper that went out and did this in other communities where they're very successful. But you got to incentivize them. They ain't coming here to build them for free. But to put that type of housing up and take advantage of those city blocks would be very advantageous to us as a community. Yes, Mary.
So when you were talking about Jobs Ohio and the new entity,
Yeah, Lake to River.
Lake to River, you said there's a pretty nice pot of gold
Yeah.
to be distributed now 7 ways rather than 6. Is can any of that be used to help increase or return passenger rail service to the area? Since we're so focused on roadways and intersections with cars.
You know, that's a great question, and there's a void that needs to be filled, but Jobs Ohio is built on driving the economy through attracting businesses here.
Which is passenger rail does do that.
Yeah, it'd be something we could approach once we get our legs underneath us. I've seen Jobs Ohio for the Intel project is funding a big interchange down there to bring in transportation. So it's something we can look at. It's something that could be brought up. I'm not sure if it's a direct funding, but if passenger rail was needed to get people to Lordstown, that's something that'd be looked at, or an entity that comes here.
I just want to bring passenger rail into the consciousness of our area because several of us around this table do go to regular meetings with All Aboard Ohio, which is all about public transportation, but primarily passenger rail. So, you know, we need to, I think we need to.
I'm going to be with Grace Gallucci, she's the director of NOAC at the Cleveland MPO. She's been kind of carrying the torch, I think, on passenger rail. I think she's very vested. She's been looking for, trying to make that line from Chicago to Cleveland. But I'll be with her at a conference in Washington in 3 weeks. I'll see where that stands. It's almost one of those things where, how many directions can we go? And we just, we're chasing everything we can, but we gladly look at that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that question.
Similar to that, and I'll let you go in a second. I've actually run across William Murdoch, who's the executive director for MORPC down in Columbus. And at that time, the 3C and D line was really at the very start of conversations. And I kind of just jokingly mentioned to him, how do we turn that into the 3C, D, and Y line? And he is very interested. He said, likely not in that first phase. He said, just density based, though that is the priority. But once that is established, it makes it easier for additional build out of network and would be fully supportive of seeing that extended in our area. So we do have friends outside our area, but just because of our positionality with population and kind of our importance that way, they get first crack at things, but
they need to hear we're interested.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, that message has been out there, so they know we're interested.
Okay, several points very quickly. 680 needs an upgrade. It's 50 years old, and of course, you've cited all the problems with excessive interchange ramps too close to each other. I'm glad they're going to fix that up and rebuild that road. Secondly, with regard to rail, I think we need to talk about passenger and freight rail together. Obviously, the freight rail is important for economic development. You had a study going on rail access in this area. Is that completed now?
Yeah, we had John Elliott. He was with Strategic Rail out of Philadelphia, one of the smartest individuals I've been around, and he understands rail better than everybody. He has projects all over the country, actually all over the world. He just took a look. We had him study for an intermodal and says there's no, he kind of squashed the intermodal stuff with us. He did some looking on what comes in, what comes out, and that's no longer viable. But we actually have him now as part of the Warren look. He's part of the MS team that's going to take a look at what we could do in Warren, the greater Warren area, and he's very interested. He's also on board as a consultant or advisor to Ashtabula. So when we look at lake to river, he's taking a look at what we can move from the lake down to the river or vice versa by rail. So I think I know we have the expertise in the room as far as what we could do. He's very excited about the BDM site. He thinks there's opportunity for a freight village there, but
BDM?
yeah, the BDM site.
What did that stand for? Where is it?
It's the RG, is the former RG Steel site.
Oh, yes, and Warren, yes, of course. And is that a rail study up on the Eastgate website? The results?
I'd have to double check.
I don't believe it is, but
We will get that up.
I'd like to look at that report on the Eastgate website.
Yeah, we'll have that up within a week.
And also this,
Talk to Mark.
where does it stand, this proposal to eliminate the Madison Avenue Expressway? Where are we on that?
Oh, well, we put in for the grant. It's our third attempt. And again, it's a study to see if that's feasible. We haven't heard back. We put in, I believe it was the end of October or the end of September. It had to be in. We're still waiting to hear from the DOT.
I don't want to put you on a political soapbox here, but from a practical standpoint, we're 11 days away from a new presidential administration. Do you have any clues yet on what the new administration policies are going to mean as far as the administration and funding of transportation and other projects in this area?
I have zero. I was actually at the meeting for Ohio Regional Association of Councils of Governments, and that was a topic, and everybody's just going, nobody knows anything what's going to happen. I don't want to get on a political soapbox.
Some of that money's programmed for certain
Yeah,
programs.
especially when some of the grants are put in for EPA.
Yeah.
That is programmed. It has to be dedicated to that. Those grants eventually, but as far as the DOT and where they stand and what's going to be the priority,
It's gonna
nobody
follow
knows.
policy.
It could change tonight.
And a quick observation on the media outreach, which you talked about, Justin. In my sometime, it's probably about 10 years ago, when they had all the publicity about the feds requiring the city of Youngstown to do a major sewer overflow reduction project. What happens is you have experts here at Eastgate in transportation. You have experts in environmental matters. Stephanie is your expert on watersheds and water pollution. What happened that I got a call when I was working at the Vindicator as a reporter. I got a call from Stephanie after a big story of mine appeared about the sewer overflows in Youngstown. And she said, well, how'd you like to come in and do an interview here at Eastgate, and we'll talk more about all of the pollution sources that go into Mill Creek and the Mahoning River. Let's talk about the non-point sources, so to speak, and, the farm runoff and the septic system runoff and all that stuff. So that spawned another story. So Stephanie approached me, queried me on doing an in-depth story on an issue that Eastgate was working on. I think with your permission, Jim, or it might have been your predecessor, I don't remember for sure, but I know she got approval from senior management to approach me as a Vindicator reporter, giving me a phone call and suggesting a follow-up story, which I did. And so I think, with permission of senior management, I think if you can have some of the experts here at Eastgate query reporters about stories and offer to do interviews and provide information, I think that would be very good. Very helpful to Eastgate and very helpful to the community. And I'm sure that the Vindicator, the Tribune, and the Business Journal would be glad to come in here and do interviews if somebody calls them and queries them. I always say that if you help the media, they will, and if you lead them to the story, they will cover it.
Yeah, it's a great comment. We have a great relationship with all those resources. And yes, we'll take a look at that.
Just, you could probably say it more eloquently than me, but one of the most important things that we're going to get from this lake, the river, is the site inventory. We frequently, over as long as I've been with the Port Authority, get leads from the Department of Development that a company is looking to move somewhere in our region, our state, whatever. They need so many acres. If it's industrial, so much, electrical capacity, so much sewer capacity, so much water capacity. We don't, and so many acres, and we don't have sites like that ready, that are ready sites. Same thing for for distribution centers. We need 300 acres and, with certain kind of access to the freeways or whatever, but also with the utility capacities. With industrial, it's like minimum 600 acres, 700 acres. So when we acquired the RG Steel site, that was the first mega site in this whole part of the state. That we had some of that. Oh, and by the way, you'd like to have a pump house that you could pump 1 million gallons of water out of the river. a day. We don't have sites like that. What Lake the River is going to do is we're going to put sites like that. We're going to look for them to try to put that in our inventory, even if we have to develop some of those sites so that when companies come and say, we need 400 acres and these kind of capacities so close to a rail or so close to a river or so close to an interstate, that we'll have those available. And now we can get in on those conversations. When we first got BDM, Kimberly-Clark was like our 5th or 6th company that went in there that we gave tours to that they were interested in coming to our site. And again, that was this, Kimberly-Clark, if they couldn't come to our BDM site, they weren't coming nowhere near this region because there was no other property with those kind of capacities. So I think what Lake the River is going to do is build up that inventory for us so that we could at least entertain some looks from some of these companies that are looking to develop.
Online, we have had Jacob have his hand up. So Jacob, feel free to ask your question.
Hello. I guess similar and complementary to the passenger rail comment, I just wanted to advocate for keeping the Mahoning Greenway on the radar as part of the Mahoning River Corridor project. Justin was showing those maps earlier and for disadvantaged communities, and that corresponds directly with the path for the proposed Mahoning Greenway. So it's just frustrating to hear so many automobile projects still, especially after, the disaster this year in downtown Youngstown, the worst year we've had in downtown Youngstown in 20 years for that street project. So just want to keep that on the radar of the Mahoning Greenway. And I agree as well with passenger rail and just other alternatives of transportation to keep our community networked.
Well said, Jacob. And yeah, the Mahoning Greenway Trail is in all our planning. It's in there as a conceptual project idea. And as we're having conversations with a lot of our riverfront communities through the Appalachian Community Grant Program projects. Unfortunately, none of that funding is going to that trail specifically, but making sure that it's top of mind as these communities think about continuing the work along the river. So I really appreciate the work that you've done, Jacob, in exploring all of that research. And it's a great resource to continue to point people to because I think it helps them recognize that it is possible. It's more than just saying it; it's actually showing it. So, yeah, we'll keep pushing, and that's a big dream, but we'll hope to make some good progress on it over the next couple of years.
Thank you so much.
Bill, did you?
Yeah, on the housing projects, is it going to be mostly single housing, or are we going to get into multiple type? Or how are they going to determine the areas where we'll do multiple housing versus single residential housing?
Great question. Our perspective from the very start of our housing strategy development was we wanted to look at the full spectrum of housing because we felt if we were just exploring one segment, we'd be doing the region a disservice because there'd be a lot of missing context to the conversation. So we tasked our consultants with really taking that to heart. So there are recommendations that address the entire spectrum of housing from the most expensive luxury housing down to fully subsidized affordable housing and every piece in between. So a lot of the data is built around that and looking at what do we currently have, what do we need, what are we missing, what does our current demographics say that we should be tracking on in terms of those types of housing. So we address it all in our plan. And when it comes to actually building it, we leave a lot of those decisions up to the locals. It's not on us to tell Hubbard Township, hey, you need to build this, this, and this in this place and this place. We're certainly here as a resource, and we will help every step of the way to make those decisions as best as possible. And then even when it comes down to the physical process of building homes, we recognize that there are speed bumps in the process. There's interactions between local communities and their own zoning and their own permitting processes. And then when it gets kicked up to the county building department, there are hiccups there in communication and in different permitting processes and different people you have to talk to. And do the people at the county know the individual people at the local communities and how to pass things back and forth? So there's a lot of work to kind of find those efficiencies, make sure that we clean those systems up, and we're committed to help and clear the air, make sure that people see the bigger picture. Because it's easy for when you're tasked with doing something and it is make sure that these things get completed. It's easy to kind of put the blinders on and everything else that happens around that may be related isn't your job. And isn't necessarily something you're concerned with. But there is importance to making sure that you're seeing that. So we want to make sure that we're educating our local communities to, things like the importance of zoning. I think a lot of communities just kind of take it for granted. Like there's a lot of power in that. And you have a lot of say over the shape and form of your community and what it looks like and how it performs. So we have a lot of programming kind of in our minds that we're building out a schedule on how we can do some advanced education for our local communities. Especially when it comes to like local zoning boards and where decisions are made for approvals and denials of projects. Folks that sit on some of those committees may not have any prior experience in that type of work. So it's important that we kind of reinforce the importance of all of this, show the bigger picture, how everything fits together. And then also, when it comes to the decisions about single family or multifamily, we're communicating to the best of our ability, what are the different incentives for either, product? Are there different rules and regulations that need followed? Does building code change when you're looking at different types of housing products? And all of those considerations, we want to make sure that we're providing the best education we can to our local community. So when those questions come up, if you have a developer knocking on your door saying, I want to do this, this, and this, and have some confidence or at least a resource to go to say, okay, yeah, we can figure this out.
Do you know what area of the east side they were looking at the economic development?
For the Crab Creek corridor study, that was, so if you kind of take Federal Street over the bridge, kind of went from the river all the way up to, I believe, the city limits. I'm not sure of kind of the east-west expanse of that. I know the city's working on finalizing that document, so there should be a physical document to point to here in the near future.
Okay.
But
All right, anything else? Any other comments? All right, we're adjourning the meeting and see you next month on the 6th. All right, thank you, everybody.
Next.
That's good.